here. Welcome to today's lightShark webinar. Hope you are well today. Looks like we got some great people joining us today, which is wonderful. Um, and so let's get started. We started off with some housekeeping anyways, and then we'll dive right into the great meat, the content, band lighting on the lightShark. That is today's topic. First things first, could you let me know? Can you see my screen? Can you hear me chatting? You should have just seen a slide change. And once I see somebody mention that in the chat, that will be just wonderful. All right, I'm going to get my Zoom all configured out here. Cool. And you guys are not that far behind me either. Awesome. So today we're in Zoom. We're doing a webinar on band lighting in the lightShark. Glad to see that everything's working. And so there's a couple things you're going to see on your Zoom toolbar. Of course, if you've used Zoom before, you're probably familiar with this. And given the last year or so in our lives, most of us have used Zoom. But if you haven't, just be aware that there is a chat section at the bottom. And then there also is a Q&A section at the bottom, excuse me. And the chat section's great if you want to comment on something, say hi to people, say hi to your friends, whatever. But if you do have a question for me about the material that we're discussing in the webinar as we're discussing it, pop it in that Q&A section. And the reason why is stuff gets lost in the chat, but in the Q&A, I can see it there until I clear it out of the way. That way, if I'm not ready to answer it right at that time, because often I'm about to get to whatever you're asking about, then I can wait, and make sure I don't miss what you're asking. That's the most important part, is that we ask in the Q&A section so that we don't miss what it is I am covering, or we don't miss your question rather. So do me a big favor today, folks, and remove any distractions you've got. Shut that door, turn the lock to keep the kids out like I have, turn off that phone, whatever you got to do, so that you can focus fully on today's presentation. We'll be going for about, typically we wrap up in about an hour, but with Q&A and such, we are able to go longer if needed. So just be aware of that. All right. So the topic today, now that we're through the spiel, is the lightShark 4 band lighting. And so I want to briefly talk as we get started just about the different hardware options that we've got and how they may be better or worse for band lighting, or, the type of situations that you might use them for. And then the most of the webinar today, we're going to spend in the software with a visualizer, looking at programming, etc., with a lighting rig. So with the lightShark, you've got two options of hardware. You've got the LS1, which is a full console with the 10 faders, the nice wheels for programming and the screen, as well as the tablet rest. And you've got the LS Core, which is the same computer, same software, same everything, except there's no buttons, there's no physical controls. And of course, it's less expensive. But, each has its own definite need. Each has its own, type of environment that it's best suited for. If you like having those faders, you want to have that ability to bring faders up and down, to, run the show on faders, to program quicker using the various keys and stuff, then yeah, the LS1 is right for you. But if you just want to walk around on a tablet wirelessly and hide the thing in a closet, then go with the LS Core. And of course, that's a more nuanced discussion, but that is the basics of choosing one of these two. And then we also have the LS nodes, which are a series of ArtNet and SACN nodes available for the lightShark. I mean, they're ArtNet and SACN, so in terms of lighting consoles, they'll work with any of them that support ArtNet or SACN, which are open protocols. But we can use a node to get more DMX outputs out of either console. And so we've got two DMX ports, two hardwired DMX ports on each console. But we can add more. We can go up to 8 total universes out of either console. We can also use an LS node if maybe we have 8 universes of stuff, and instead of running 8 DMX lines from wherever you're controlling things to the stage, you would want to run one network line. You could do that with an LS node. Boom, pop it out to two 4-port nodes and be rocking and rolling with just one cable. Okay. There are varieties of ways that you can hook up LS nodes. And so you can hook them up, directly to one console, directly to 2 consoles. You could even hook 2 nodes up to 2 consoles and set them both up as a primary and a backup. Though that gets a little more complicated, it is doable. But let's talk about the LS wing as well. So the LS Wing is a newer product that came out this past spring, I believe, and it is a fader wing for the LS consoles, the lightsharks. Okay. So the way that this works is if you are plugging it in via USB, you can plug it in USB to the LS1 and it's going to show up as faders 11 through 20. So 1 to 10 would be on your lightshark, 11 through 20 would be on your wing. If you plug it into a core, it's going to see, hey, I'm attached to a core, and you get faders 1 through 10. Okay, makes sense. If you use it over the network, you get some more options. So when you plug in a network port to it, to the lightshark console, you now can use the ports on the back. There are two of them, the DMX ports, as a node. Okay. So you get DMX output via a node built into the LS Wing. You also get more configuration. So you're able to then set up whatever faders you want in whatever order on that console. You can even switch pages on the LS Wing, et cetera, et cetera. And that's done via OSC, completely customizable to whatever you would need. Or, third option is you literally can connect it via USB and network to get the auto configuration of the USB mode with the ability to use the nodes built in on the network. And so the LS Wing is going to work and going to be usable via the LS1. That way you're going to get extra faders. Via the core, you're just going to get faders, etc. And of course, it does support other devices as well via a variety of different protocols, namely OSC is the most popular one that we see people connecting to other devices with. And so we talked about networking app, blah. So let's talk about software. All right, made it through the hardware, guys. Let me know real quick, actually, before we move on to the software. Are there any questions that anybody has on the hardware stuff? Just, I know we've got some new reps in here and folks, and I want to make sure we cover everything well. While we do that, I'm going to pop over to the lightshark software, and I'm going to adjust my window sizes a little to get the visualizer in here as well. But if there's any questions thus far, do let us know. We will do our best to help you. So I'm pulling a visualizer over here, and today we've just got a pretty basic band lighting rig to work with. So the way that it works is I've got some Mac Auras, some wash units behind and in front. I've got some Gamma TX4s, actually TX5s, and I've got some RGB AW PARs behind as well. And that's our rig. And so when it comes to setting up for band lighting, the first question you really want to answer is, okay, how do I want to play this thing back, right? How do I want, am I playing it back? What else am I doing while I'm playing it back? And these questions matter because the setup from someone who is going to be, a lighting person who's running the show and has their full attention to be able to show towards that lighting is going to set up the console a lot differently than the person who's also running audio and just wants to flip through some scenes, or the person who is the bartender and literally might only touch the controls and change the scene 3 or 4 times a night, right? So you want to define that first, okay? The simplest way we can set it up is via the executors page here at the top of the lightshark. And so the executors page, if you're not familiar, allows you to put a number of buttons with single cues on them that you can then play back as your show. Okay. And so the way that this works is for the simplest mode, we're going to go here into the settings and we want to set our executor mode to exclusive. And what exclusive means is only one executor at a time. In normal mode, I'll go back to the executors to show you. In normal mode, the rows automatically override each other, or the columns automatically vertical automatically overrides each other. Sorry, I just hit refresh on accident with my mouse. So the columns automatically override each other. The rows are able to work in tandem to build a look together. When we're in exclusive mode, this is the simplest. Each button can only be played at a time. And so I would go in here and I'm just going to use the touch screen, and I would go and maybe I turn on my lights and I put the front ones in front light And I put the back ones in a nice position. Give them a nice color here. I grab my next set of lights. Give them a nice color here. Give them a position. That's what we did with the last one. Yeah, that'll work. And then I grab my pars, turn them on, and they're kind of blinders. So we're going to bring the intensity way down on those guys. Pop in a color on those guys. Now we've got a pretty lively look here. We need to do, our front light needs to zoom out for sure. So go to beam here again, just doing this on my touch screen. Now I've lit the stage pretty decently. Boom, press record, head to my executors page, build a first scene. So I'll just hit edit, press the plus here, hold down on it and type. And now we've got a nice red orange scene. Maybe we'll go in rows just to keep it organized, not for the executors, and we change up some colors. So maybe we grab these guys and we pop them in a nice blue. I didn't build color palettes for these guys yet. Put these guys in a nice magenta. Yeah, we like that. Put these guys in a cyan. Record over to the executors. Boom. Nice and quick. And then maybe we'll go to our second row and we'll do a different look. And so here we'll go grab these guys in green. Put these guys in. I don't like green yellow. We'll leave them in blue. Put these guys in a magenta. Yeah, that's a nice look. And then we will go ahead and switch positions. So back over to our position palettes. This time we'll do straight out on the auras. On the TX4s, we'll do a fan. Cool, we like that. Pop that on our executors page. Rename that, and then that is enough to show you. Actually, we'll do just one more quick. So another color here. Let's pop those to open. Do a nice red, cyan, red magenta. That's not really art, but we'll work with it. Cool. So now we can see if we clear out here and pop out of edit mode, we're able to just select any of these. And no matter where we're coming from, where we're going, we can build this whole page out, all 8x6 here. And we're able to just have a bunch of looks where somebody, you can hand this to the band leader's, significant other. You could hand it to your teenager. You could hand it to the bartender, the person, running sound, whomever. And, very quickly and easily, they can just go through some different looks and be able to make an interesting show. Not only that, but you can actually lock out the executors page as well, so that if you're in one of those situations where you're handing the console off, you don't necessarily trust the person to have programming controls. You don't want them getting into stuff and working with it, changing things around. You just want them to be able to play stuff back, and that makes good sense. And so then all you would have to do is go into the settings here and lock executors window, turn this on. You type in a password. Once you do that, I'm not going to do it right now. Oh, we can do it actually because I can get out of it with a refresh. So I set up my password. Now, if I refresh my page, we're all locked out here. I can now play back, but I've got none of the programming controls. I can unlock it. boom, I get programming controls again. Just remember, if you do play with the lock, rather, excuse me, I'm jumping over my words. When you refresh the page or reboot, get into a new device, you see it locks again. So if you want it to stay unlocked, just make sure you turn it off here in the menu, and then you can refresh to your heart's content, get on different devices, whatever, and it's still there. Okay. So that's the simplest setup. And that's great, for audio guy running lights, spouse of the band leader, random person who shows up at your bar a lot, church volunteer, whatever. You just want them to be able to choose between some basic looks for whatever band you're lighting. That's going to work great. But for a lot of you, of course, you want to do more than that. You don't want to, you don't want to do just basic. You want to get more impressive. So let's go ahead, shut this off, pop into edit mode, and talk about laying things out in a little more complex way, right? So I'm just pressing delete and pressing each button. Make sure you turn them off. That's not a true delete because they're still in the queue list directory. We could get them back, but we can delete them this way as well. Delete out of the queue list, and then we're really gone. Boom. Awesome. So now let's talk about a next setup. So we can also work with our executors page and build a simple executor punt page. And this works great if you're on an LS core and you have no wing, no second tablet to run your faders on, because you can use the virtual playback screen here at the top to have virtual faders. That's always an option. But you're on one tablet, you just want some basic scenes. You can do that with the executors page as well. So we could go ahead, just as an example, and have a page, say our back auras on. Now, this is a key point here. When we press find in the lightShark with any moving light or any light, but with moving light, we get all the parameters. In our programmer, it's going to bring in values that are going to record to the cues. And when we're setting up a page for punting, for running things live, you often don't want that, because if you played this cue after a color cue, it would wipe out the color, and you don't want that. I just want to start building a cue with some intensity on it. Okay. So what we want to do instead is we want to clear this all out, and we just want to grab the light, turn it on, make sure the shutter's open, and I do like to store it in there. So these are now the darker red or darker magenta. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead, and the next thing we are going to do is we are going to record that to an executor. So same process as before, pop into edit mode, press record. I usually press record on the previous screen or on the console, but this works completely well. So we want to put it on there. And because we have the rows that override each other, it's going to be a little bit different than programming other consoles, but it'll work. So we'll do TX. So that was actually just the aura backlight. So let's do the aura front on. And then, oh, but I just did it wrong. I just did exactly the way I did. I told you not to do it because I was not paying attention. Whoop. I was looking at the zoom. So that's okay. We'll grab those guys again. Intensity up, strobe, at least touch it so it's not strobing. Boom. Boom. So that's on, front's on, good. Then maybe we do a button with just the TX4s on. Shutter is open. It looks good. And then we'll do one with just the pars on. So we've got no intensity coming out of that because there's not a color defined, but that's okay. And then I'm going to do the last two just being combinations of lights on. And so we might do you know, all the auras and the TXs as a button. Again, this isn't the most versatile setup, but it's kind of in between like a really simple mode and a more complex. Okay. And then we'll just do everybody on. Turn those pars on. Cool. Then we'll just clear. We will delete that extra queue that we had made, then gotten rid of. And so now we built some basic cues to turn the lights on. Okay. So we'll go ahead and pop out of edit mode. We will fire our all on so that we have output from our lights. And then we'll build some more stuff. So next thing I like to do are position. So in this case, I think I'm going to put my front lights, and I'm just going to, for this show, put them as front light and make that, the only position. And I'm going to include zoom in this just for simplicity's sake, so that it's covering everything. So grab that guy, then we grab our palettes for our position on our bag. And we'll do out, fan. These guys have no position, of course, so we'll lay out some of these. Whoop. So we'll record this, give it a name, out fan. Next, we're going to lay out our next guy. So we'll do cross on these guys. And that wasn't as excited as I wanted. We'll do fan on the first set and cross on the second lights. Yeah, that works nice. Record a second executor. And maybe we'll just do one more. Maybe we do sky, fan. And then maybe we do vice versa. We'll send the second set to sky and the first set to cross. So now we have the ability to do position separately. And the only thing we need to do is take our executor mode in the settings back to normal because it was in exclusive. It's going to be important here. Cool. We're just going to leave that where we're at. Now we can do some colors. So the colors are the one place where you may have more combinations than rows of executors, and that's okay generally. So we'll go over to colors. Now I'm going to use my touch screen because it's faster. Just take everybody to red. Boom. And just for the sake of time, we'll keep it simple. Do red. We'll find green and blue. Sure, we'll call that green, even though it's cyan. So red, green, blue. Then maybe in the next row, we'll do some combinations. So this time we'll do, magenta and yellow. Perfect. Cyan. Orange. And I would fill this up, of course. And then we'll do some gobos. So only one of our lights has gobos. So I'll clear out here. Pop out of edit mode here and just fire some things. So as we can see, we've got all our different lights here. We can choose our positions separately. We can choose color separately as well. Notice how even if we fire executors in different rows, they may not override each other. You will get the look that you asked for. It just doesn't turn off the previous look automatically if they're in separate rows, but they have the same parameters. They're both working with color, so they're going to override each other. Then we go here, grab some gobos, our TX4s, boom. Gobo 1. Gobos are easy because I like to just go in order so that they stay in order. Of course, you can name them whatever you want, right? Name them whatever they look like. But for the sake of quickness, I'm just going to do some of the gobos, not all of them. So we have those options to choose from as well. I do like that one. Circles. And then with any gobos, we want to make sure we have an open slot. At least I do, though. I know you can turn the executor off. I like having one that says open just so that I can find that one. That tends to work best for me. And then we've got some gobos laid out. And we can do some beam stuff if we want. You know, like the front light, I'm going to keep the front light zoomed at the same place all the time for this setup. But for these guys in the back, we can work with the zoom. So we can go, you know, narrow. So TX narrow, TX is just the light. Maybe we do in the middle. I don't like to do too many options because I find that just leads to you sitting there thinking you're thinking about the decision you're going to make and missing the musical cue, rather than if you just have a few options, you'll more be paying attention to the music and choose the right cue. So we got some options there. You know, we can bring in some special things too, like prisms in our next row. And then we'll do a prism off, or a prism. We'll spin the prism. So it's going to be somewhere in this profile. There we go. Get a nice rotating prism there. Perfect. Awesome. And then we're good to go. You know, that gives us some basic looks that we can work with. And now, similar to the last option, but with a few more options, we can, on a touch screen or elsewhere, switch between a variety of different looks and be able to do it and really make an interesting show with just an executor's page. So even if you're just on an LS core, you know, maybe I move the lights and then I turn stuff back on. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do there. And got that stuck in our programmer. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with just a simple page like that. So then we take it to the next level, right? If we're punting a show live, I've kind of got two more, you know, ways of setting up that I want to show you guys today. And so the first is a full-on punt page where we're making use of 10 faders or more, if you got more. And then we're also making a use of the executor's page. And so on the executor's page side, it's going to be generally the same thing, okay? Where what we need to do, actually, I need to, with these settings in the lightShark, there are different preference settings here. And I want my clear mode to be default, and I want my return to default to be on, because then it works like an American console. Um, again, these are options. I go over them in other webinars and such. Um, but what we're going to do now is basically keep the same setup, except we're going to delete the intensity ones. And that makes more room, more space for different color combinations, right? Or more position combos. So we'll delete those because we're going to put those on faders. And if I was coming from like I was previously, where I've built all these on cues, then I can literally just move those. Well, let me move them over there. I think it'll just let me copy. Yes, we've got our front on. Actually, I want the front on to be first. So I'm going to move that over there, but the front on we'll put first. Then we'll do our TX. Copy that there. The pars. Copy that there. And then I also don't need the combination ones that I made, okay? I don't need the ones that have the combinations of different lights, right? Because each set of light is able to be controlled, turn on and off. And if I'm touching the console itself, I'm able to go ahead, as you can see, doing it on the touch screen here, and work with multiple faders at the same time. You know, no problems at all. Okay, so we'll just leave those up because we're working with them. Excellent. So we got our 4 groups of lights on faders. And then we can begin to put things on faders that we want variable control of. And so this is the part of the show where everybody's got a different layout. I like to save the rest of my faders for things like effects and other things that I might want to have control over. So like I've got some zoom for the TXs here. And that's fine to run different zooms on buttons. But I like to run it on a fader because then, you know, you've got variable control the whole way through. And so I'll make that my next 2 faders. I'm going to go TX, and we're going to just go to the zoom here, take it to full. And then we want to clear that, do our auras, same deal. So take it to full, which on an aura is upside down. In my mind, it's because at full is the narrowest. And then we go to TX zoom. And then the last thing we need to do, you'll see if you just play this cue, if you just bring it up, you don't really get what we want, right? It just snaps in and it snaps out. And that's because by default, like many consoles, the lightShark faders only control intensity, but we can change that. So we're going to tap this, tap our 3 dots. Fader controls LTP channels. We'll turn that on. In the lightShark HTP is intensity channels. So if there were intensity on here, I could turn this off or on, but there's not intensity on this cue. There's only LTP. So I just got to toggle that in. Do the same here. Boom. And then we get that nice variable control. Now it may jump a little if you had the zoom elsewhere. Like if you had stored the zoom somewhere else in your show, like I did on these auras, and then you start the fader, then it cuts all the way to the default, or the bottom rather, and then it goes up. And so that is something to be aware of. Either just don't bring it down all the way if you do that, or just don't program it anywhere else, etc. You can also in the fixture library editor flip invert channels, which is what I would probably do if I were doing a show with this rig, because they because you know, they're backwards in my mind. Zoom at the bottom should be the narrowest, and at the top should be the widest, right? So now I've got some zoom faders. I could do things like use that same concept. I like to do speed faders for my gobo rotation or for my prism rotation. Just an example, we'll do it. So I go to, let's see, gobo rotation here. Rotate it up. Clearly, this is not a rotating gobo. So I could go to a gobo that rotates, and then you can see that it's rotating super fast. And you could build that rotation fader. That way, by recording that, setting it to LTP, you'd be ready to rock and roll. And then you would be able to go ahead and do that. But what I like to do last is run some effects. And so I like to do a fader, even though I've got my pars on here, with something that's a bit of a blinder type effect. And so maybe I go ahead and I grab my pars here and I bring those guys to full. And then I go ahead and I'll leave it on. So we'll do an intensity effect here and we'll actually bring them to half intensity. So this effect shines through. Of course, as we all know, the effects are what is due for a upgrade. And it will be happening sometime, hopefully soon. So we make a little blinder effect thing, put that on a fader. And then maybe I'll make a ballyhoo for my auras. So let's just go to position, do a circle on those guys, make it a little smaller, a little faster, a little more offset until I find something I like. Yeah, that'll work. Maybe change the distribution. Make that on a fader, and then go ahead and do a ballyhoo for the TX movers. Get something going there. Cool. And then my last fader, I pretty much always like to take everything and make them strobe. So let's find a strobe we like on the TXs. And then on our auras, we find a strobe we like. Maybe a nice random strobe. Make all my movers strobe. Find a winner here. Something like that. And we'll do strobe. And so this went, let's see, this was a, oh, what was this on this fader? We'll play it back quick. Oh, that was just a blinders on. So we'll label that super quick. Then we had a aura ballyhoo. Then we had a TX ballyhoo. And lastly, but not leastly, we had strobe. And for these last few, we do want to go in and make sure we're turning on the Ltp Fade so that we, as we change the fader, when it's down low, it's real slow. As we move it up higher, it gets crazier. We'll do that with the effects, though. I didn't actually put any LTP channels in there. I didn't put the position into the queue. And that's kind of important because then it's able to run that effect at any position. I'll show you that in a minute. But what we do want it to do is we do want it to control effects speed and or size, okay? And so what that's going to do, just as a demo, is if I do effect speed, then if the fader's low, the effect starts real slow. And then as you move the fader up, of course, it moves faster until the very top of the fader is going to be where you programmed that at, okay? The speed you did program that at. And so the cool thing about that is you can be moving along, moving kind of fast, the band slows down or whatnot, and you can bring things to a nice slow stop. Slow it all the way down, maybe pause it for a second, turn out the light and then stop it. There's a lot of options there. And so you're able to get that speed control. But the size control is also really helpful too. And the size control just controls the size of that effect. So it's always happening at the same speed, But if I just bring it up a little, the lights barely move. So I can like just start to ease it in, get it started. A lot of people do this with the old effects engine. That should be replaced here soon because of the way that it starts one by one fixture. But then I've got speed control, or why not have both? I like both because then as you move the fader up, the effect gets bigger and faster. As you move it down, it gets smaller and slower, etc. So we'll do that with this one too. Toggle those guys back on. Again, same deal. Fast, slow, small, big. Allows you to get a lot of different looks out of just a couple faders here, right? By mixing these two together with our two sets of lights, you're able to get a lot of different looks. Bringing the strobe at the end of the song, blind some people. Hope I need to turn on LTP channels there because it was just color. So now I get fade out of it, whereas before it was not fading. Okay, very important there. And then you're good to go. So that's basically how I typically lay out a punch show on a lightShark. There's many ways to do it. Of course, you can choose your own adventure there. But you know, when I've got 10 faders, that's generally the stuff that I go for. Anything else I want to control, I dump onto executors. And you know, if it's something that you need different levels of control over, like you know, the zoom, I like to put it on a fader, but you can do different levels on buttons, and that works just fine. And of course, in real life, it's not going to jump like that. It's going to move because these things are mechanical and they take a second. Um, and you're able to, you know, do a lot of different things here. And so, you know, the way that that might look, because I know we have a question here about a punt song and I can't sing. My singing is really bad, though, as my wife tells me, you know, I've hit a point in my career, at least, where if I am singing and I'm way off key, I know it. I can't sing on key, but I know that I'm off key, which is key. Okay. That was a pun. Um, so maybe we start out here and then we go ahead and, you know, start our show. So maybe I pop the gobo out. I start with the basic look here. I've got the faders here, but I don't have them labeled on the console. That's okay. I'm just going to bring them up on the console. So I've got them physically. It's also sideways to me, but that's okay. Cool. So we're starting off our song here. Maybe it starts in blue. You know, I don't have a fader set. I don't have different color set for my front lights, which I would probably do here in the executors page. And then we start our song. You know, maybe I go ahead. I really could use a front light white preset in here. So what I'll probably do is I would go and edit this guy right here. So I go to my cue list window, double tap this guy, press edit, hit the cue. And I'm just going to take these lights. I'm going to pop white into them so that there's some white on that stage. Can update that guy. Play it again. Boom, now it's in there. It's kind of hard to see in the visualizer though. That's okay. So now we're going to go. And so the band's going, okay, you know, we're going for a chorus or maybe a pre-chorus. We can switch positions, you know, on the beat, of course. Maybe they really change up the tone and we switch to a cyan orange. Bring that in. We can flip flop between the two if we'd like. Chorus hits, you know, we've got, let's see if we can reach for the right fader, pop in a gobo and get these things moving. Woohoo, they're singing. Maybe we go back to another verse, back to another chorus, turn on some blinders for a bridge, maybe switch our positions and put something up in the air for a bridge. Then, boom, bring our blinders back down, you know, hit a final verse. Maybe we end the song with a quick blackout, maybe not. I'm not a fan of doing that a lot of times unless the band does it. So I just pulled the master fader, boom, and then we can restore and go to the next song. And so that's the basics of punting. I see I've got a question or two in there, and that's great. If you have more questions, feel free to ask them. But the last thing that I want to go over, so this is, you know, a basic, like pretty low level punting, you know, quick and easy punting tutorial. But now I want to talk last, if not least, quickly about doing a setup where you are programming out individual songs for a band. Okay, because that happens a lot. And there's a few things that I see people do that really trip them up that I want to go into just to kind of give you the answers to the questions of, why do my lights not look the way I programmed them when I go to play them back, right? Um, and so I'm going to go to faders 11 through 20 here. Actually, I'll just go to page 2 to keep it simple. Oops, I've got a fader up. And so if I'm programming a song out for a band, there's a couple important things that you want to do. Okay, the first thing is obviously set lists, they're going to change, right? They're never going to happen in the same order. So the first thing I want to do in the first cue is I want to take all my lights, and I like to use the find feature here in the lightShark. Oops, why are we not finding lights? Oh, my master's down. Oop, that's a good reason. And so I like to use the find feature because it goes in here and it sets a value for pretty much all the parameters. Not all the gobos and stuff, but pretty much anything. Okay. And then I want to go ahead and I just want to set something for every parameter. Okay. And it does take a minute. I get that. But just go in and set a position. Set yourself, set some positions. We've got a zoom set. We don't touch control channels, but we'll set gobos if we've got them. We'll set a color to start us off. Take our fronts here and turn them white. I want to go through and really set a value for everything, because then if I'm coming from a previous song, I don't have to worry about, I can turn those off. I don't have to worry about things coming from previous cues if I didn't stop that fader yet. Okay. And so that's the way I like to do it. Of course, you can always stop, bring down the fader to stop the cue with normal settings on the lightShark. But I like to be double sure, right? And just, give everything an assignment in that first cue, every parameter that the light has, so that I know I'm good to go. After the first cue, you don't have to worry so much about touching every parameter. However, do keep in mind that the lightShark is not a tracking console. Okay. And what this means is it keeps things more simple, where you can go program your first cue, don't hit clear, and then go build the next cue for that song, right? Then we go ahead and we grab these lights. Oh, they're just super narrow right now. Probably should have zoomed them up a bit better. We grab our different lights here. We go ahead and we adjust the look. We bring these guys up and we give them some color. And then we make that our next cue, right? And that's going to work. But what's not going to work, just so you're aware, is if you go ahead and you're like, okay, I'm going to clear. I'm going to see what I got for this song so far, right? I play my second cue, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to make my third cue. Because the lightShark's not a tracking console, which you may be familiar with if you've used other lighting consoles, the cues don't track through from previous. So if I went ahead and I was like, oh, I like this, I just want to take the pars and I want to make them pink. Why? I don't know. And because that's what the music calls for. And I'll program that as the third cue. I'll clear it and then I'll play it. Well, what I get is almost nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. Because in the lightShark, cues don't track through. Okay. And so if you're building a song, the couple things that you really want to do if you're programming by song is on that first cue, program in all the parameters that you use in your show. Because that way, no matter what other song you're coming from, when you play this first cue, you get exactly what you had, and you don't have gobos or positions or whatever tracking through from that other cue. Because while the lightShark's not a tracking console within the same cue list, it is an LTP console in the sense that, if you have something from a previous cue list and you leave that cue up and you bring up a new cue that doesn't touch that particular parameter of that light, then guess what? It's still going, and it might not be what you want to see for your new song, right? So go ahead, make sure in that first cue you're recording everything that you use. We call this like a blocking cue sometimes in the theater world. They use that term. And then also, when you're going through and you're recording different cues for a song, don't hit clear, okay, until you're done with the song. Because if you do, then you just want to make sure that the way to get around it is like, okay, I'm in Q2 now. I pressed clear. Then that's not the best thing to do. But if you did it, it's okay. You just go ahead and literally just touch all the parameters. Just touch the intensity, touch the strobe, just literally touch the different parameters, okay? You don't have to move them a lot. You just have to touch them, and then that loads them into the programmer, right? Put them into their position, whatever that was that cross, I think? Yeah. Select all the things, and you can see, like if you select any lights, it shows you where they're at. And so you can just find that or hit the palette again, which is a better way of doing it. And then you've loaded everything, and now you're ready to program forward if you did clear. Okay. But those are definitely the biggest things that I see. Somebody goes through and they're like, hey, wait, I programmed stuff in this queue. And you did. Like I can double tap here. I can go to this queue and hit the arrow, and I can see there's information there. But for these lights, the only lights I recorded in that queue, there's no intensity information. So they're not on, right? And so that's something to look out for as well. Other than that, the biggest thing with lighting for bands and doing it in the lightShark is you want to have fun, right? Um, Band lighting, especially, is a bunch of fun, and shows are fun, and they're going to come back soon. Or if you're in Australia, they've already come back, right? They've come back occasionally here, but have fun, enjoy yourself, and my best recommendation to anybody is when you are building either a show that's pre-programmed for a band through different cues, or a show that you're just running live, you're punting, is keep it simple to start with. Okay. It's better to have less options than you need than too many options and you miss cues. Okay. Every time you're ready to program more stuff when you're running your show and you go, oh, if only I'd program this, I'd be good. And you can program during a show. That can be done. That's when you need more options. But until you're at that point, if the options you've got are getting you what you want, don't build yourself an unlimited number of options, because that's just going to slow you down in a live show environment. All right. So taking questions, guys, over the last few minutes. We've got a couple here. Let me grab a quick drink of water on my way. Questions: are the executors locked after power off and on? Yes, that is exactly. They're designed for installations with LS Core. Yeah, that is how it works. That is exactly what it's designed to do. Is basically for an LS Core type installation. Lock it in an AV closet somewhere and have a tablet. On even a tablet just on a wall or on a touch screen for people to be able to press stuff. And then, as I noted earlier as well, Johannes, with the executors, you've got two modes: normal and exclusive. Exclusive means only one of these at a time can play. Normal means multiple can play at the same time. Okay. And so the way that they work is they override each other in normal mode in the vertical realm, but in the horizontal realm, they can play and they can mix together. Okay. In the vertical, they override. In the horizontal, they can play together. If you get a bunch of them in a horizontal that you like together, you can do a swipe across and it fires all of them. Works better on touch screens. Actually, I'll just use my finger on the touch screen. As you can see, I'm swiping across there. Doesn't work amazing on a PC touch screen. It works better on tablets, but it does work, and that's a cool way to run things. And so that is the difference. It's just whether you basically want to be able to have one look live at a time or multiple. There are also 2 pages of executors. So look at it as, instead of 8 different columns of 6, it's actually 16 columns of 6. And if you're new to the lightShark and you're like, okay, but I have to switch between the two. Well, if you have between the virtual playback executors page 1 and 2, if you have 3 tablets set up or 3 tablets hooked up, you can go ahead and you're able to then have this up on 3 different devices. And any window changes or view changes that you make on one device, it doesn't happen on the other devices. They're all independent. So you can have all three of those up at the same time to really lay out a lot of stuff for a show. Awesome, folks. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Like I mentioned, if you have any other questions about band lighting, about the lightShark, etc., there's a couple places where you can get that info. Right now, the most important place probably is the lightShark users group on Facebook. This is where you can see the new effects. We all can't wait till it comes out. It's going to be real stinking cool. And then you can ask for support and help from people and show us what you're doing. It's not technically a support forum, but oops, let's close you. It's not technically a support forum, but honestly, a lot of times it's easier than email for real simple issues just to go ahead and be able to switch between to see what people's issues are. Other users can help you. If you do end up needing more help, I'll direct you to email and then we'll figure that out, etc. as we do here. So that's the lightShark users group. But there also is the website, workpro.es/lightshark. And there also is YouTube. There is the WorkPro TV channel, which has things such as these webinar replays. So we'll post that here for sure. And a bunch of tutorials on lots of things like Shark. So WorkPro TV there, workpro.es/lightshark here. Awesome. And then you're ready to go, So awesome. Thanks for the encouragement, by the way, Gary, in the Q&A. But yeah, this is where you can download on the support page. You can download software updates, etc., 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 and you're able to do so there. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. It's been great hanging out with you. I hope you had fun as well. Yeah, so we'll post the webinar on the WorkPro TV YouTube. I'll also post that link on the lightShark users group on Facebook when it is ready. It'll be a minute. It doesn't happen instantly, but we will get that sorted for you. It'll definitely be there on the YouTube. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you guys for hanging out today. In the last minute or so, if there are any questions in the last few minutes, let me know. But I think if you had a question, you probably would have asked it by now. And so I hope you have a great rest of your day. Enjoy it. Enjoy the weather if it's nice, or if it's raining like it is here, enjoy the indoors. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, and we'll see you around. Thanks.